Hey folks, hope you're all doing well. So for this week's video, I want to talk a wee bit about overtraining and that obviously eventually leading to overload and burnout, etc. and how maybe, I suppose, my thoughts and opinions and approach on how to train as efficiently as possible. Again, with everything in these kind of videos, that this is kind of my general opinion and my, I suppose, general approach to training that I try and take with my own running and with the runners I coach as well. And it's also from, I suppose, the very many mistakes that I've made with my own running over the years. So again, just my general thoughts and opinion. But just in terms of overtraining, I think it's something that we've all done from time to time, where we've probably pushed ourselves too much, either in terms of volume or even intensity. And I'm going to talk about maybe how to break up a particular week's training and my thoughts on that a bit later in the video. But I suppose, what overtraining, what is it? Well, it's basically pushing yourself over the limit that you can essentially handle. And I think what a lot of people are doing, say if we take kind of somebody's training, say a week's training, in that 7 days, I think a lot of the, I suppose, general opinion out there might be that, if I need to train as hard as I can in those 7 days, and that will yield improvement. And sometimes, well, in my opinion, that's never the case, to be honest with you, because pushing yourself to the limit all the time, I think it's just going to be very effective at getting you very tired and possibly injured as well. So I think it's really important to not think to yourself, if I'm working towards a target, a goal, or whatever it may be, whatever, if it's a marathon PB, if it's a 5k PB, if it's doing completing a marathon for the first time, 10k for the first time, etc., that you kind of get, I suppose, realize that it's not about training as hard as you can all the time. It's training as efficiently and as smart as possible, and that's going to yield improvement. And I think a lot of people new to running probably make that mistake of pushing too hard every time they go out running. And again, that's not the case at all. That's not going to yield improvement. It might for a certain amount of time, but it's not sustainable. And I think that's the thing with training. I'd say anyone that's followed me will be sick of me saying, and my runners will be sick of me saying, that consistency is key. So in terms of, trying to run a PB or run a marathon for the first time, you're not going to do it through a couple of weeks of spectacular training. You're going to do it with a number of weeks, so a period of time, weeks, months, of consistent training. And you might look at that training, look back in that training and think to yourself, geez, there wasn't any actually really brilliant sessions in there. But probably a lot of the time, I know with my own training, when I look back at races that I've run well, and I look back at my training diary, I'm kind of thinking to myself, I see like that there's nothing really spectacular in there, but it's consistent training back to back. And I was talking to someone recently about my own marathon PB, and I was saying I didn't miss, when I ran my marathon PB, I didn't miss, from 10 weeks to the marathon, I didn't miss one session. So like key sessions for me generally in a marathon block are a midweek session and a long run. I'm generally quite tired from those sessions, and I find it hard to push hard than any other days. But looking back, I didn't miss any sessions, but the sessions themselves weren't like, they were good, but they weren't like absolutely spectacular. Like, I've ran faster sessions and better long runs in the lead up to other marathons that I've subsequently ran slower in. But I suppose the thing is that I'm trying to get across is that there was a consistency element there that allowed me to be, I suppose, in peak shape on marathon day. And I think that's the thing I always kind of try and get across, is run your hard days hard, and your easy days easy. And I one of the questions I get asked a lot is, I want to run X time for 5K, or I want to run X time for a marathon. How many days do I need to run, or what do I need to do to get that? And it's a very difficult question to answer. And one of the things I always say to people is, how many days a week can you, with everything going on in your life, okay, with work, with family life, etc., can you get in consistently? And I generally say to people, if that's what you can get in consistently, then that's the number of days that will get you to your 5k PB or marathon PB or whatever it may be. And I think that's important to realise, that I think a lot of people are not probably taking in external factors outside of running, work stress, life stress, family stress, maybe travel that's involved, maybe getting to work, etc. And like all those little things, and maybe other exercises that you're doing, or other activities that you're doing, they all are little factors that all contribute. And I think by then, if you're, say, someone, for instance, that has a very, very busy work life, or has a very busy family life, then it's very difficult to go, I need to run this amount of days to run, because you're going to be tired, and then your training's going to suffer, and then you're going into your goal race, and your training probably has been a wee bit haphazard because you're trying to get in so many days, and it's not maybe feasible. And then that ends up being just, the training block wasn't as consistent and efficient as possible. So I think that's something to think about. What allows me to be consistent? And like, that's something I, for years, have had to, I suppose, figure out how many days a week, or how many hard days, many easy days. What's the other things that I need to include in terms of S&C, everything else that's involved? Am I very busy with work? Am I doing a lot of travel? Like, they're all little factors that are hugely important. And I think figuring out that is and it's hard to figure out sometimes, especially maybe if you're new to running. What is kind of the sweet spot? What can I be consistent at? And I think that's difficult to ascertain, but it's something that I think you need to probably. My thing would be always err on the side of caution, rather than doing too much. If you do slightly under what you're capable of, I think that's fine, because again, you'll be consistent at that. If you do slightly too much, then you mightn't be consistent at that. So I think that's important. One of the things in terms of sessions I wanted to talk about is that I would see a lot of, and again, I've done this in the past, I would see a lot of people pushing themselves to the limits in certain training sessions, okay? And I think sometimes, like, there is sessions that are just difficult, and long runs that just are difficult, right? But I think it's important not to go to the well in sessions. And what I mean by that is, it's more that you're and we've all done this, where you're completing maybe a session, maybe let's say an interval session. Let's say an interval session of 1k reps, okay? And let's say you're doing 8 1k reps, okay? And your target is whatever pace, and you're feeling great maybe halfway through, or maybe after 5 or 6, and then the pace that you're aiming for initially, you kind of go, well, this is feeling a bit easy, I'm going to push on now and go way faster on the last rep or the last couple of reps. And I always say, and my brother will always will admit to this, I always say to him that, I don't want you to, smash it out of the park on the last couple of sessions or couple of reps. I would rather see consistent reps there. And if you feel great after that session, brilliant. And to not empty yourself and not feel absolutely, I suppose, wrecked after it. Because what you want to do with training sessions, I think, is you get them completed, you get that adaptation, you feel, it's going to feel tough, but you get that adaptation that you're aiming for with the session. And if you feel great afterwards, and you don't feel too battered, and you feel a wee bit fresher after, brilliant. That means you can go on to the next session that you're doing maybe a couple of days later and feel good in that. And then you're able to put those consistent days and weeks back to back all the time. Whereas if you push yourself to the limit on maybe the last rep or two, then that takes a couple of more days to recover. But then you go in and do maybe another session a couple of days later, a long run, and then you're a bit more tired, and then you're pushing yourself hard in that session. And then that's when training overload kind of comes in terms of injuries, illnesses, feeling run down, and just generally lethargic. So that's really important that, a lot of the sessions are, we get it done, feel okay, brilliant. We haven't emptied ourselves completely. We've got the adaptation that we want from the session, and move on to the next one. And it's that cycle over and over and over again. So yeah, that's kind of my general opinion, I suppose, on overtraining. And again, these are all things that I have 100% made mistakes with in the past, and probably will in the future as well. But I think